to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. And I'm your host, Pastor David. And it is a Friday, man, of March 8th. And it is a dreary day outside. So, folks, if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. We about to have a great conversation on Let the Truth Be Told Radio. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in and let's rock it. Friday Night Live right here, TECN TV Roll. TECN TV. And this is how we roll. And if you ain't got nothing to do, that's just how we roll. Call your friends and let them know you're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all, come on. Yeah. Stop off summer in the wind. Making me like that, it keep me like another kid. Give my heart, I'm your rib. If I ever had to for you, I would do a bid. Friday Night Live, ain't no job right here at TECNTV.com. Going down like confetti. Water 10 to 1 shots again. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Promise that we're gonna trend. And if you ain't got nothing to do, get you a brew or two. Or whatever that you do. You know a glass of wine is prime time. Let me put something on your mind. Y'all, come on. TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David, in the show. Let the truth be told. Right here. How we roll. And this is how we roll at Tech TV. That's just how we roll. Friday night. How we roll. And if you ain't got nothing to do, y'all better call y'all friends and say, Let the Truth Be Told Radio is on the tip. Been a minute since I've been in it, swimming in it. You should be living in it. Keep your hands all over me. Friday Night Live, ain't no job. Never worry. And I'm your host, keep you coming. Pastor David. You love it. Who cares if we in public? And we got a great conversation tonight, y'all. With whatever. You know why? I won't give you right. Friday Night Live, ain't no job. What you like? Get ready. And it's on and popping. It's on tonight. You can catch us at Rumble, David Low 1057. That's just how we roll. And you can also see us on Facebook Live. How we roll. X at David Lowery Jr. 1. That's just how we roll. Y'all share it around. Yeah, that's how we roll. Friday night, right here, TECN TV. Like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, do that to me like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Friday night, baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. TECNTV.com. I'm your host, Pastor David. Like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we roll it like that. Do that to me like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we roll it like that. That's how we do it like that. And this is how we roll at TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. We got a great conversation, and I have a great guest. And we got a lot to talk about since the last time we talked. So, y'all check it out. Let's enter the truth zone.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
On the bridge.
No justice, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
Right.
The Biden administration is opening new ways for thousands of people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to legally enter the country.
Is necessary by any means necessary.
Malcolm
his life
is rolling in his grave, knowing nothing can change for
us. The federal government itself has
60
proven
years
that it is
later,
either
black people are still a political
unwilling
football.
to protect the lives and
Come on
property
in.
of those human beings.
Liar, corrupt, thief.
Global, universal, and
Let's
coming
get
from the
ready
windy
to
city
rumble!
of Chicago, Illinois. Now it's time to let the truth be told with David Lowery.
Good morning, Vietnam! Now come on in. Let's get ready to rock. Hey, 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 hey. Welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. And I'm your host, Pastor David L. Lowery Jr., and I want to welcome everybody to the show. But first, let me give all praises to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and God, man. He is so good each and every day that we wake up. We should be honored and grateful that he allows us to do so. Folks, this election thing is about to take a different turn. We've been seeing a lot of the things that have happened over the course of the last 3 years, and it has not been a position that has been very good for the United States and the American citizens. It seems as though we've continued to lose rights, and those people who say, like the Democrats, they lie about everything that they say they're not going to do. They do it themselves. And it has only been a ugly situation that the American people have faced under Joe Biden and this administration and the Democratic Party. Now, from what we've seen in the last 3 years, you would think that any person in their right mind, and you have to understand what I'm saying, any person with some logical sense would take a look at the 3 years we've been through and the 3 to 4 years that we went through under Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Now, under Trump, it was like 0.02 inflation. We didn't have China and everybody owing us money because they paid their money up. We didn't have wars. The gas prices, it's what, the third month, and they've gone up to $5 or more. Our schools have been inundated. Our children have been put under attack with this transgender homosexuality world. 2 wars, one in the Ukraine, one in Israel, a potential war with China. But to the American people and patriots across this country, we have to say, when is enough going to be enough? And so we've watched, and you guys that watch my show, those who watch, those who say they don't watch, but they do, we have always been on the forefront of fighting for our children. See, the children are the future. This Biden administration and the New World Order, they do not want children to be thinkers and thinkers out of the box. Children who will ask questions, children who will be smart enough to tell you the ratio from the sky to the moon to the sun. Because as growing up as children, we were taught that at public school, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Tilden Technical High School. We were taught all the essential tools that was necessary for life. And a lot of my classmates at Tilden, I'm a alumni of 1974. A lot of us went on to do great things as we continue to do great things across this country. But the point that I'm making is to now, to those who are watching the show, those parents who are out there working 9 to 5, the parents who are struggling, your children are under attack. We saw it when they got rid of all the Black teachers in the state of Illinois, and a special thanks out going to Dr. Rosita, Brian Mullins, and some of those other folks who continue to fight. But what they've done now under the Biden administration is change the laws in the schools. They got a law now that make parents terrorists. So parents, if you don't know, you love your child, you go up to see what's going on if she is acting funny, and you find out that the school is a parent and don't have to tell you nothing unless the child say so. So to the parents across this country who are experiencing this law, this abomination law that has been instituted by Barack Hussein, the King Queer Obama, who set this all in motion to weaken our country, to destroy the future, which is our children. Now our children can't even read or write. They're graduating them. They can't spell. They're not learning about mathematics. They're not learning about science. They're not learning anything, accounting, logical thinking, auto shop. They're not learning how to do nothing but understand how to be a social couch potato with evil thoughts. So in saying that, I have a guest tonight. This mother has gone through the ringer with the school system, and she has a great story. And this is a forewarning. And I want people to understand why Pastor Lowery stand here and step on the front line, because of these type of mothers who are willing to stand up and say, no, I'm going to fight back. So with no further ado, I want to bring my guest in, Miss Jeanette Cooper. Ms. Cooper, welcome to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told.
I am so glad to be here.
Listen, when Mr. Binky, that's Steve, when Mr. Binky called me, he's one of the co-hosts of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So he was telling me about you a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this is very near and dear to me, because I feel that children deserve the opportunity to grow up in a society that teaches you the basic skills and necessities that you need to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've seen under this administration with the Democrats and the Republicans who have lost their way from God, we see this. And so tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, and talk about the story that you're about to tell them to warn other parents about what can happen to their child.
So children, let me start with the basics, which are children go through puberty. I think we're all on the same page there. And it's
Yes.
a pretty, I don't know about you. Did you have a really enjoyable puberty experience? Was it great for you?
Well, you know, back then when I came up, it was called a rites of passage. And so,
Right.
yeah, man, when I was like 10, my dad got and told me about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, you know,
Yeah.
and that was a lesson that I learned at home. So I was able to get through puberty in a safe zone to where I was knowledgeable about what was changing in my body, but it doesn't happen that way for everybody.
Right. And lots of us go through the period of kind of our bodies changing, and we're generally in a peer group where we're talking about that privately or whatever, whether it's at home or we're just around a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that we had kind of multi-generational, intergenerational families living together. It's more common. I mean, white people don't do this as much anymore, for sure, since the suburban move and like the, post-war kind of 50s, we started to live with immediate families versus like intergenerational living, which I think Black people do a lot more than white people, for sure. So when we stopped having that intergenerational living situation where, younger people would learn from older people and older people would learn about things from younger people and all of that, we would be grounded in kind of a wisdom of our elders. And I think that's kind of absent. So that's kind of the grounding for where I'm going here. So young people now, I'm just going to say middle upper class white kids generally are becoming kind of enamored with the concept of being transgender, of saying that they're transgender. Now, it's not a concept that I believe in. I don't think anybody has a gender identity. Everybody has a biological sex. We have a sexed body, all of us. And that's really around our potential to produce some sort of small gamete like you or large gamete like me. And that's kind of it. There's no such thing as a gender identity, but man, what a cool thing to think about when you're in middle school and high school and young adulthood, to think that there might be this special way to describe yourself, to make yourself unique, and to give yourself a description that makes you part of a group. That is smaller than just being I'm a girl or I'm a boy.
Right.
And so children have really become enamored with this, and even some young adults. In their discomfort, they're finding the concept of a gender identity and all the different names and terms that they can choose from. And that would be a fine idea, kind of like if you ever watched that really awesome movie that I loved as a child called the Breakfast Club, where there were all
Yes, I remember
jocks and
that.
all these different groups, and those were social groups. So they had a certain kind of outfit and haircut and all of that. And we can all, I think, relate to that. Like, which group did we belong to? But in no way did anybody ever go to a doctor and have their breasts removed in order to be part of a group. And now we have something called the gender industry. We've always had the beauty industry. And that's really preyed upon the insecurity of women. I'm sure it preys upon men too. I'm just not as familiar.
Men, I'm getting confirmation that men are making all these cosmetic surgeries as well. And I was like, where have I been? What happened? I'm trying to figure it out, but go ahead.
Yeah. So the beauty industry has always existed for women, preying upon our insecurities as women, and the way that we look. And we've tried to purchase our way to feel better, which never really works. That's kind of all in your mind. And we've spent a heck of a lot of money doing that. And so now there's a new industry, the gender industry, which is all about preying on the insecurities of children and young adults in this very difficult time of puberty and young adulthood. It's covered by insurance, unlike the beauty industry, which is the most horrific thing ever. So the concept that people have a gender identity has been introduced really, I'm going to say, by full-on pedophiles, people who are interested in having
Joe
little
Biden.
boys stay little boys, which is kind of a sick and twisted concept. And I don't know what grace I can give to those kind of men who wish to proliferate young boys to stay little forever. But now it's really invaded kind of the school ethos and families. So now the idea of what it means to be a good parent and what it means to be a good person is that a person is expected to affirm a non-reality, something that is not the truth of material reality of biological sex. And if you don't do that in kind of the wider society, then all of a sudden you're a bad person and you don't care about children, you don't care about people, you're actively trying to harm them and hate them. And that's really preying upon the thing that we actually do the best as human beings, which is care about each other. So now they've done this to teachers, they've done this to parents, to put them in a place that says, if you don't do this, you're not a good person, you're not a good parent, and we're going to have actual things happen to you. So in my case, my daughter was 12 coming on just about 13. And she caught upon this idea of a gender identity, and she decided, I feel more like a boy. Now, I don't know what that means exactly. It can mean all kinds of things. There's all kinds of stereotypes about what girls are and what boys are.
Yes.
I think we were kind of moving beyond that a little bit, and we were allowing all kinds of ways for men and women to be and dress, and different families had different ideas about that. That's the cool thing about America, right? That every family has their own vibe and rules and values and all of that. And we totally wiped that away, and we made schools in charge of that in the worst way ever. So we ceded our power to schools in the most awful way. So my daughter caught upon this idea of I'm going to be a boy or something, and that I never really kind of went along with that. And it happened literally, I would say, overnight. She had probably learned about this, kept it secret. I'm going to guess, I don't know this, but I'm going to guess because she knew that there was something a little bit wrong about it. And that I would push back against it.
Yes. And because you know what? Now, the law here in Illinois, SB 818, when they crafted the bill itself, first, let me say this. This is psychological warfare that the government has been using in order to steal people's kids. I've seen this. And they use the fact of trends, like, certain trends, like LL Cool J, one pants leg up, one pants leg down, or certain wears. And so they make it seem to the children that this is the way the world is going, and if you're not part of this crowd, you're not cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. But the fact of the matter is this: when the schools overstepped their boundaries and they became surrogate parents, no legislators, nobody said nothing to the parents. It was just vamped, and everybody was forced to do what they need to do. And I think that it's a lot of parents. I'm so glad you're on the show. A lot of parents was caught off guard like you, because I know others who went through this. So go ahead with your story, ma'am.
Yeah. So in my case, I mean, of course, school is both about the academic and the social, right? So there are certain things that are acceptable in a school classroom and certain things that aren't. You know, Jeanette in Chicago, you're in Chicago too. So I believe very much in progressive education, but true progressive education. So progressive education used to be very much like, for example, the freedom schools of the 60s, where you would have learning that would apply to your real life.
Yes.
John Dewey, turn of the century, those progressive education schools were about learning things that you would actually apply in life. You would take real life problems, you would learn about them in a schooling kind of setting. And that was absolutely kind of seamless in that way. It wasn't created problems of things that didn't really exist. You were really trying to integrate, not have children be little, soldiers out in the world as kind of pseudo servants, but really trying to learn things that they could then apply to their families, apply to work or career, work in their community, things like that. So freedom schools, both, and the progressive education model, those are all integrated. There was this book I read, I should show it to you, called Doing Your Own School. And it inspired me to homeschool my daughter. And it was about kind of the freedom education, Black people taking control of the education of their children and creating their own schools for their own kids. And
that's what I've been saying.
So many people are doing that right now because schools are, I say this a lot, and I'm not saying this on behalf of Partners for Ethical Care, but my belief is schools are prisons. Schools are prisons. They are really disabling children in really awful ways. And I think communities of people can do a much better job of educating children. Is it a utopian vision for me? Yeah, for sure. But the damage that schools are causing to children and the kind of disability of that they're causing in children is pretty awful. Like you said, they're not able to kind of go out into the world and integrate into society.
Cannot function.
The real function of human beings socially and career and to contribute as part of a community and society, they're not able to do that. And I think, the number of hours that kids are in school, yeah, we can put some blame there. Absolutely, we can put some blame there. So my story isn't as much about the schools so much as the entire ethos of Chicago right now, at least where I am, and in middle upper class kind of white Chicago, is that if you're a good person, you affirm your child's gender identity. And when my child kind of said this to me, I just asked questions. I said, well, this doesn't really make sense. And questions are not acceptable anymore. You're not allowed to ask questions.
But you know what I find really weird about this whole thing is that the school nurse has to call home to get permission from the parents to give a child a Tylenol or a certain type of aspirin. But yet they tell the children, because a lot of parents don't know, when we got into this thing, we found out that in the law, it specifically says that this gender coordinator, that's probably who talked to your child, started to tell the child that you no longer have to listen to your parents if they do not go along with what you say. So you have to keep it a secret. So now you have adults telling vulnerable children, oh, it's okay to lie to your parents and keep it a secret, and then turn around and call a parent and say, can I give your child an aspirin? So
yeah, and that's the thing that is pretty critical and in a child's development, kind of 0 to 7 and even beyond, is what's called attachment. And there's various, there's theories about attachment. So that critical time period in a child's life where they're developing trust in a family, will set the stage for the rest of their relationships throughout their entire life. And so a teacher, another person coming into that and rupturing that secure attachment between parent and child is setting the child up for a highly anxious future of relationships where they feel like they can't trust other people, because what's happening is teachers are saying it's possible that you can't trust your parents. Now, that is a totally kind of new concept that we never really had until recently. The idea that you somehow couldn't trust your parents, with no evidence of that.
I mean, let's think about this though. Listen to this. Now, as a child, I was real conscious because all the things that we'd had, like we had home economics and all that other kind of stuff in school. I would think that using common sense, as a child, how could I not trust the person who pays the rent, drives me where I gotta go, buys all my clothes, put food on the table, put money in my pocket, and let me do what I need to do? I wonder, and see, that's why I say this indoctrination of our children to make them think that you're a parent. You're the person, the parent, that are going to do and take care of this child. But at the same time, as a child, how do you think that you can control the person that's taking care of you? And that's the thing that bugs me the most, because that says common sense is not being taught to the children.
I think it's a poisoned seed that's being planted. I think that the child is trying to discern the world during kind of the, early years, kind of schooling years.
Yeah.
And they're trying to discern, what is my place in the world? What kind of impact can I have? And where do I belong? And who can I trust? And that secure attachment from parents is so important. And then when you plant kind of a poisonous seed there, without any evidence, and that I think is the most dangerous part of this. And in my case, and then in other people's cases, the idea that teachers are saying to children, it's possible that you can't trust your parents, but hey, guess what? Get in my white van. You can trust me. That's pretty awful, because at the end of the day, if you're a parent and I'm a parent, guess who's the responsible one?
It's us.
We are. Well, like we're
right,
the
exactly.
ones who actually have the responsibility. So when you're kind of teaching my child something and then it comes into my home, I'm the one who actually has to be responsible, which means that I should hold the power too. Obviously, responsibility and power are together. But the third part of all of that is when teachers are saying to children, you have the authority, and the government is saying to children, you have the authority to make decisions, that you're giving them power. You're also giving them responsibility. But what they didn't get yet is the brain development to be able to do that.
Yes, you have to be able to make sound decisions, and I had another mother that was on my show, and she had went through the same thing where, and it happened so quickly. She said she went to Planned Parenthood, and her child was having some issues, and she said she just walked back out to the car and said, "There's a boy inside of me trying to get out." And from that, the child was maybe about 15 or 16. Planned Parenthood got into the middle of the family, caused the mother and father to divorce because the mother is trying to suffice with the child. And once that the child turned 18, she was flown to California out there and became a ward of the state. And they cut her breast off. They destroyed her body and made her a boy. And she started having all sorts of problems with the medicines, the operations, the psychological trauma that she's going through. And the mother was just distraught about that. And it all started with this Obama and this Democratic machine and Joe Biden with his son that's a homosexual crackhead. I know Joe loved his son, but that don't mean that you force everybody else, children, to become a son like that. You know what I'm saying? That whole overlay has been sitting there and nobody talks about it. It's like, okay, under Trump, we didn't see this, but now under the Biden, because he has a homosexual son that's a crackhead and all his friends are homosexuals like Barack Obama and all of them, and Joe ain't nothing but a pedophile. So you changed the world and they introduced transgenders. You set up laws like here in the state of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker got a ABCEFG family and a bag of tricks, you know. So they've gotten in position now in the schools and different places to where now they felt it was comfortable enough after COVID to attack the American people and patriots across this country and to attack our children in the schools and try to change them and give them no education. So we are definitely in a war, sister. One question. Now, how is your daughter doing? Let's talk a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about how she's doing?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely have no contact with her. The state of Illinois, during the custody evaluation, deemed me a serious endangerment.
Wait. So you say custody?
Yeah. So
explain that to our listeners.
Yeah, I used to have my daughter. I was divorced maybe 4 years prior. So 2015, I got divorced from my husband of 11, 12 years. And then I had my daughter 7 days a week, 6 nights a week. My ex-husband runs a pretty large healthcare company here in Chicago. And he had kind of found a new love interest, and they're married now and have a child. And so I had my daughter pretty much all the time. I mean, I homeschooled her for a period, and then she joined an independent school called Catherine Cook. They're in Old Town, and then she is now at Beacon Academy in Evanston, another pseudo kind of progressive school that doesn't really do progressive education. But when she was she started school after homeschool in 6th grade, and she was excited about school. She chose school, unlike kids who are forced to go to school, and so she was excited. But I remember during parent-teacher conferences that the teachers told me that she was having trouble making friends because the kids in her grade were confused by my daughter, who was like, I love homework. I think it's great. I wish we did more. And she was really so much more mature and really followed the rules and didn't really misbehave at all. And then the teacher said to me, I remember the teacher said to me, she's going to have to adjust in order to make friends. And I said, I'm sorry, excuse me? You're telling me that she's really mature. She does all of her work, and you're telling me she's the one who needs to adjust because she does all of those things? I think you've got this backwards. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Exactly.
And that's not right. And so I think my daughter did adjust to her social environment, and I was okay with, cutting her hair. My hair used to be really short. Actually, I looked very much, people would think that I was a man if they saw me, a small one, but for sure. And a lot of people thought I was a lesbian. That was just kind of an assumption, I guess, with short hair and a flannel and jeans. And my daughter, I cut her hair and I was cool with that, but I was always for sure the more masculine one. She liked doing her nails and all that stuff. And then I think her hair just grew out after that, but she was really trying hard to kind of present this tough boy thing. Now she's going to be 18 in August. I am back in family court, attempting to get a judgment of my parental rights that I still very much have and would like a court to, acknowledge that I do have right to see her, that I haven't done anything wrong, that I am not a serious endangerment at all. And I would like the court to say that, because there's nothing that I've done. But right now she seemingly is doing pretty well. She's, I guess, applying to colleges, and she looks very much like a beautiful young woman. She never really, to my knowledge, disliked her body. She didn't even go through like the normal adolescent body hating period, I think. So it's interesting how the concept of gender identity and trans can completely rupture the family structure. And it's all because of this. I don't know if you've heard this myth called the suicide myth. If you don't affirm this idea of gender identity, the child will kill themselves.
Exactly. And
right?
That's one of the things. Yeah, that's one of the
false.
Right. It is. It's a big lie, but I think once they got the doctors on board and then they got all these people in place, then they made that decision, and that was part of the indoctrination process. is that you have to really psychologically remove a child mentally from their parents. And so you have to make up all these other type of ailments or problems that children could have. Like, okay, well, you know, if she don't become a boy in a certain amount of time, she just might want to kill herself. You know, that is part of the attack, and that's part of the warfare that they've used, because we've seen that rhetoric being used, and we can even see it in politics today. When they was trying to pass all the transgender laws, they were saying that if you didn't pass the transgender laws, then the reason why it needs to be passed is to keep them from killing themselves or committing suicide. And so, like I said, I'm an independent, but I call a spade a spade. And what I've seen under this Democratic leadership for this country in the last 3 years under Joe Biden, it is just uncommon. It is just something that anybody with common sense would see, how parents are lost their rights, they're losing freedoms, right to our children. I mean, they're changing the economy. They're really destroying this country. And I don't see how one person with logical sense can say that America is doing well, that America is in a good place right now, that our children are the smartest. Because when we was coming up, it was okay to be academic. So I mean, we wanted to compete against Russian children. We wanted to compete against the Chinese, anybody, because we felt we was just, as a U.S. kid, we were just as smart as anybody or smarter. And so that was the concept of school. But now we don't know where they're going with this thing. Well, we can see where they're going with it. But just as you spoke, this transgender changing, this surgeries that they're having, they cost tons and tons of dollars. But I don't see how the insurance companies are going along with it, because did they make your insurance? Did they offer your insurance up for her if she needed to make the sex changes if she wanted to?
Well, luckily, I prohibited that by agreement. I mean, after 2.5 years, I feel like I signed a pact with the devil in order to be able to send my daughter letters in the mail is all I have. So I have that in my agreement to not allow any sort of gender transition, anything. But there's a dad, Ted Hidako, in California, and we talked, and he used the same language that I had in my agreement and his agreement. And then his ex-wife took his son to the doctor, who didn't know anything about the agreement, implanted a puberty blocker in his son, which is tens of thousands of dollars. And that blocks body development, and your brain is part of your body. And so that's really the worst thing, is a puberty blocker, a thing that halts the physical and psychological mental development of a child. And his wife had that implanted. I think it was $220,000.
No, when you said implanted, when you say implanted, so in other words, a puberty blocker is it like a chip or something that slows down the learning? Explain what that is.
It's not like a chip so much as like it's a chemical release that's constantly being released to inhibit the hormones from being, produced in the body. So it's suppressing hormone production that would be normally happening during puberty. And of course, we know that all the things that are happening during puberty are making us grow physically, but also our mind is growing, right? Yes. Our brain is developing. And so it's inhibiting all of that. And what happened when he went to court, and he's still in court, he went to court, the judge said, well, no, we're not going to remove the puberty blocker because that would be an action, and I'm not willing to take an action. And which is crazy, because the action was already taken, and the action is ongoing with the puberty blocker still implanted in his son. And that, I think, is the worst thing. It's not so much the surgeries, because if you put a puberty blocker in a let's say a boy who's 9-10 years old, and it inhibits his puberty, his entire body, including his genitals, will stay the size that they were at 9 or 10 years old. And by the time you get to 16, 17, 18 years old, you do want surgery, because you probably hate yourself. You don't look anything like your peers. you didn't develop with everybody else. You have no relationship to other people. You already felt a little weird before. You certainly feel weird now. I mean, you don't belong anywhere. And absolutely, I would say we describe kind of a gender identity or transition, a gender transition as a living suicide. So you're physically still alive, but you've killed off your old self, and you just keep kind of like self-harm, destroying parts of yourself. You take away your name, you take away any connection that you have to your family, you create an entirely new identity, you start removing body parts, changing your own physical self into a new person, so that you can kind of escape a difficult, what should be a moment, right? That you would grow through and build your psychological muscle, your physical muscle to kind of get up the hill of life and continue climbing. Instead, you kind of take a path around it into a black hole where you have a lot more problems than what you ever would have had before. And it's difficult for those young people, even after they've kind of woken up from this, to figure out how to move forward with their lives. It's possible. They're still alive, obviously, and there's a lot of hope for them. But what the gender industry did to them is absolutely unethical.
And you know what it continues to be as such, because there's a lot of parents that have been split up and families that have been split up behind this one person wanting to go along with the child and the other one saying, hey, wait a minute, this is not logical. But I'm taken back by the fact that, this puberty blocker thing. So they're actually implanting something inside the child's body to slow down the growth psychologically and physically. Yes. And I'm sure a lot of parents are not up on this type of thing, that what it means, So this industry has gone to a place where it is ready to complete change a child's gender 100%. But I don't think the children understand the pain, the cutting, and the operations that they're going to have just to make that happen. Because we had a person that came on our show that said they wish they never did it, that they're still taking medicines. And this was a woman in her 30s at the time. And she said she probably will never live to see her grandchildren because of all the meds and all the things she's done to her body, man. And that's pure evil that I see as a pastor, to say, wow, how could this be happening? And this is nothing but pure evil from the dark side that our children having to deal with, because psychologically they're not ready.
Not ready. They're not capable, because you can't see. We say that teenagers can't see around corners, but imagine you're 10 or 11. And what we see, you talk about like the parents. I think there's kind of two groups of parents. There's parents who I know who are coping with the distress of their children in all kinds of ways, but the parents who are able to sit beside a child who is crying and upset and they're having a really difficult time, and you can sit with a person in distress. It takes a lot of tolerance to do that, but what you're doing is you're giving that person an opportunity themselves to grow without trying to fix their problems. Because if you fix their problems, you're completely disabling them. I used an example in like a workshop where if you have, you had little kids and they were like 1 and they were trying to like pull up and start to walk and things. And it's hard to watch them stumble and fall and hurt themselves a little bit and get up and do it again. But guess what? If you didn't allow that process to happen, you'd be pushing around a 16-year-old in a wheelchair, because you actually have to develop the muscles and in your mind to be able to kind of push forward in a trajectory through life. And what we're seeing now is what you talked about before, which is kind of a psychological disabling, where we don't allow children to struggle. And I'm not saying you don't want people to starve, obviously. No. I mean, nobody wants that. But beyond basic needs, people can get through some pretty difficult situations. Obviously, they shouldn't have to get through them, but a lot of them are just regular life things, and they just happen, and we can all get through them. I think the example that my colleague Donna uses a lot in her kind of prayer group is that Mary walked alongside Jesus, and Jesus carried the cross. Mary didn't pick it up for him. she walked with him and was with him, present with him, and that made it easier for him to bear. Yes. And that's what we need parents to do. Now, what we have in affirming parents, parents that affirm the concept of gender identity, they're not capable of withstanding the distress of their child. They need their child to stop crying, to stop being upset, because the parent is overwhelmed. The parent doesn't have the resilience. The parent doesn't have the strength to be beside and with a child who is struggling. And
that's so true.
That's kind of the weakness. That's the weakness. And it's hard to be graceful to parents who are actively harming their child.
Well, they're enabling them because of the fact that if you don't discipline a child and you let a child just go do what it want to do, and that's what the government did. The government took the parents' rights away to discipline the children, and thus the children just start doing what they wanted to do. Because I can remember a period when it started get to a place where a kid was called, "If you touch me, I'll call 911." Well, my kid tried that. And he had a chance to call 911. And when the 911 came, I said, y'all can take him with you. I don't want him. And they stayed at home. So, but the point of it is, you're right. Parents are now does not have the intestinal fortitude to stand up against the government, nor do they understand how to be parents. Mm-hmm. See, we learn from parents because our parents taught us. Then we taught our little cousins and all, it was the idea of seeing how to change a diaper, how to know when a baby has colic, when it's coughing, and all those little things went out the window with grandma because the new wave traditional parents felt every time little Johnny holler, you better find out what he want. Mm-hmm. All the psychological warfare has been going a long time because when you don't discipline children, and they have right to do and say whatever they want in your house, then we see where that happened. And I'm sure a lot of parents are experiencing it now, and they just giving in.
I think they are giving, they think that they're liberating children, right? I'm a believer in kind of giving children some agency over their life, but obviously developmentally appropriate, right? I mean, nobody hands car keys to a 10-year-old. That's not developmentally appropriate. And it certainly isn't developmentally appropriate to say, do you feel more like a boy or a girl today? Let's head to the doctor. Like that's not appropriate. And then when they're down kind of when you're separated from your peers and their experience, and maybe you were already kind of a quirky, weird kid in the first place, which would have been cool. It's now you're so far separated that you can't even relate to people anymore. And you've gone down a path that is biologically impossible. So no matter how many cosmetic surgeries you do to me, I'm still going to be female and my body is still going to fight back against what is unnaturally kind of put in me and on me. It's always going to be a discomfort. It's always going to be kind of living a dishonesty and untruth. And it's always going to be a psychological push. It's like one time I went on Fox News. You can Google me. I went on Fox News and you can see 3 interviews. In the first one, I didn't have any makeup on. I don't wear makeup, as you can see. The second one, the lady put makeup on me and it was extremely uncomfortable. I mean, physically uncomfortable, but I was so conscious of like lipstick on my lips and stuff on my eyes. It was so uncomfortable physically. I felt a little bit dishonest, actually.
Because that wasn't you.
It felt like I was trying to do something that other people wanted me to do, or so I fit in. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure why I didn't say no. And then the third time I went and I said, hey, guess what? Last time I was here, my own dad didn't recognize me. And so I'm going to have to say no. And it's really hard to say no because I think saying no to people, somehow that's made us into a bad person. Or that we're not agreeable, we're not kind, we're not nice if we say no. But guess what? If we don't say no, we get taken advantage of.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's the whole thing that this world has come down to: the lack of moral and scruples. It's not there in the country anymore. It used to be where people wouldn't even think about saying certain things to other people's children. They respected the family structure. And now that is just like, it's a free for all. Yeah. Whatever that you want to do, we don't care about the families. We don't care about this. All we want to do is whatever trend is in, that's what the children are supposed to follow. And I think a lot of this stuff is trendy, and children don't quite understand the trend. You know, this is something that you might say for 6 or 7 months, or you might say it for a year, but then after that, it goes back to the normal place that it was. But now these trends are going to go to the next level, then to the next level, to the next level, till you're completely all cut up and turned into something that you're really not. This is really sad.
Well, what's sad is I think the concept, like the liberal concept of diversity, has been completely subverted. So we used to believe in like a pluralism where every family kind of got to decide how they wanted to raise their child, and you would go to somebody else's house and you would say, "Oh my gosh, you're allowed to have like dessert after dinner every night? Like, that's crazy. My family, we don't do that." And they would say, "Oh my gosh, you can stay overnight at somebody's house on a school night? Wow, that's so different." And every family got to make their own decision. And that was respected within the school. So a teacher would say, "I don't know, you should talk to your mom or dad about that." Like, that was the answer.
Exactly. Yes.
That was, they're not like, "Hey, I'm not your parent. You have parents, your parents get to decide that. I'm here to talk about this kind of stuff. The rest of that stuff, your values and all that kind of stuff, that's going to come from home. In this space at school, we have these values. At home,
right, exactly.
Could be different. And that was diversity. That was pluralism. But now I agree that the schools, in many ways, the public schools are saying, this is the set of values that you need to do here and also at home. And go teach your parents at home, which is an absolutely bonkers concept. I mean, in what's happening, I mean, I don't, where are you in Chicago?
I'm in Oak Forest, Illinois.
Okay. So I'm in like the city proper, around like Western and Armitage and kind of Bucktown, Logan Square, Wicker Park. And I'm a landlady in Garfield Park. And I watch the school over there where it's filled absolutely with Black children and white teachers. And I cannot imagine if those white teachers would change the names and pronouns of those children, what riots would happen when those parents went to pick up their kids and thought, I'm sorry, white lady, what did you do? Like, no. This is no. That's not going to fly.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was the move when they wanted to bring this homosexuality stuff into the schools. They got rid of all the Black teachers. I'm currently working with the Black teachers here in Chicago and across the country. We've been trying to find ways to get the people in court so we can sue them, because it was a cruel, calculated plan on how they made the scores fall for the children. And when Black teachers said, hey, wait a minute, we can craft a curriculum that Black children can understand how to pass the test. See, the kids did not understand the questions that the test was asking, thus they failed. And when the teacher said, okay, we'll do this, when they figured out how to teach those children how to pass the test, the state came back, fired all of those teachers for some kind of religious reasons, if they were whatever. They didn't make it known like that, but they did. And so when they got all the Black teachers out of schools, they replaced them. All of those experienced Black teachers with PhDs, doctorate degrees, all of those teachers who were teaching our children are now out on the streets, and they've been put on a do not hire list. They can't come back to CPS. And then they put all the white teachers into the Black schools so they can indoctrinate the children, so that those teachers with school loans, if you stayed 2 or 3 years into the system, they forgave your loans. And so thus they had a mission, was to get our loans paid. Not only that, we're getting paid to change these children into transgenders. And that has been a plan that has been happening. It's happening across the country. And if we, the people and patriots across this country, don't stand up, people like yourself and myself and other pastors and other citizens who are experiencing this, we're going to lose future generations. Give me your last words. We got to get out of here. We can always have you back, man. It's great. I love it.
Well, I have another guest that I'm gonna feed to you. There's a great gentleman called Richard Enumene in California, and he has gone through the entire kind of transition experience. He's a black guy. His parents are from Nigeria. He has a really interesting story, and so I'm going to pass his name on to you.
Great, great.
And then the second thing I just want to mention is Partners for Ethical Care is one of the few organizations, but we're pretty much the only nonprofit organization that fights against the concept of gender identity in this affirmation model. I testify across the country on this, and it's good work with good people, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And we just need more people to speak up. For the people that have been harmed, like Richard and others, including Chloe Cole and Prisha Mosley and all these other people who were kind of coerced into this, and truly were not informed of what was going on. They weren't developmentally capable of making those decisions. We have a program called Transition Justice, transitionjustice.org. And that is a program where people contact us if they feel like they've been harmed by this industry, the gender industry, whether it's Planned Parenthood, who hands out hormones like candy, or some other, doctor's office, like the entire, Lowery Children's Gender Clinic, which is funded by, of course, the Pritzkers.
Yep, exactly.
Man in a dress, Jennifer Pritzker. Those people can contact us, and we will find them an attorney to try to help them out. And that's just us connecting people with resources. That's what we're interested in. We're a group of mothers. We're all volunteers, and we want to connect people who are being harmed by the gender industry with actual resources. We help parents. We help detransitioners. We help all kinds of people. So we'd love to help anybody that we can.
Well, listen, we're going to partner with you. My foundation is Living and Driving While Black. And we're looking to do a huge march here against the Democratic Convention. We want to show them that we're not happy with what's going on in this state, and the American people and patriots across this country need to stand up and let the Democrats know what you have done will no longer continue. We're not going to affirm any more that this party does, and it's time for us to get back to the basics that God made two genders, a man and a woman. God bless you, and thank you for being on the show. I'll definitely be talking to you. You have a great weekend.
I'll
look to talk to you soon. Thank you for coming on. Folks, I want to, that's a great conversation that we're having. And then those who do not know about what's going on with our children, you can reach us at 708-663-5262. And we'll continue to enlighten you, because there's so much happening in the schools today. There's so many laws that they're changing so that they can have access to your children. Man, these are my last words. I got to get out of here. Let me get some stuff queued up. Listen, these are my last words. If the American people and patriots across this country don't understand that the fight we're in, we are in a fight. This fight is about good and evil. I was so glad to see that the Supreme Court ruled against Colorado so that Donald Trump could be put on the ballot. It should not be that the American people and patriots across this country be forced to continue the leadership that we see under Joe Biden and this administration. And as a pastor, I can see the evil that is happening, just like with Miss Cooper and her daughter, and just like all the other parents that we sympathize with, that these men and women in dresses who now want to change the way God made us and created us. And so I want to send a special message out to my boys out in New York. We was in New York last week. We taped a great show. It'll be on Breaking Point. It'll air this Saturday at 8 a.m. Channel 194 on Roku TV. And it was 3 pastors who came together across the country. And we talked about the issues. We talked about how Black people need to be standing up, how the Black community need to have common sense to know what has happened to us, to the Black community. This is a very defining moment in our culture. We are put into a position that they want to replace us. This is not some fairy tale. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is not something that somebody told you that wasn't true. It's actually happening. Black communities across the country are being inundated. They've been changed.
There's a new black elite group growing, and they don't want to see the Pookies and Ray Rays and the grassroots people anymore. So black people, I have to be honest, I'm an independent. I would never vote for a Democrat again, not after Joe Biden tried to change people's children into an opposite sex. The Barack Obamas created laws to start that trend that are destroying families. If you cannot see that the Democratic Party is trying and in the midst of destroying the black community, if you do not understand the struggle that black people made to get us to this point, and now our God-given rights, I'm talking about the rights that God gave us, not what man, the rights that God gave us is being infringed on. So I'm urging parents across the country, and my number is 708-663-5262. Organizations, call us. Let us unite. Let us stand as one. Let us stand as the American people. No matter what color, white, black, green, I don't care. If you are an American and you love God and you love this country and you love your children, let us stand and let us get Donald Trump back into office. Let us see and give him 3 more years to do the things that he did before they stole the election. God bless you, folks. We're going to get up out of here. And in the meantime, in between time, it's a Friday. And this is how we roll right here at TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David. And I'll see you guys Sunday on Moments of Truth. Y'all share it around and think about it. It could be your child. A special shout out to Joe Box in New York, David Zire, Ben Bergquam. I'll see you on the 18th. And black people, let's get out. Let's make a change. Let's vote for Trump. At least give ourselves an opportunity to see a different candidate. God bless you and peace.
Don't kill the vibe. You know what I like. Daddy, it's on tonight. I'm talking on sight. That's just how we roll. How we roll. Like that. That's just how we roll. How we roll. Like that. Crazy. It's been a minute since I've been in it, swimming in it. You should be living in it. Keep your hands all over me and never worry. Keep you coming, that's how you love it. Who cares if we invite? When it comes to you, I'm with whatever. You know I won't give you up. I know what you like. Get ready. Oh yeah. It's on tonight. I'm talking on side. That's just how we roll. How we roll. Just like that. That's just how we roll. Oh yeah. That's how we roll. Yeah, baby, do that to me like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, do that to me like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. And maybe yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Like that. No, I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we roll it like that. Do that to me like that. You know I like it when you do it like that. Baby, yeah, that's how we roll it like that. I love it how we do it like that.